Hi there, and welcome to Plant CEO. In today's episode, I'd like to welcome Logan Sullivan, the co-founder of Counterfactual Ventures. Hi, Logan. How's it going?
Fantastic. Excited to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Great to have you on the show, and you've got a great background there, I can see.
I do. Yes, it's much better than it was last week. I actually just moved into a place here for spend a couple months on a floating home, which I've wanted to experience my entire life. So quite excited. I apologize. I don't have much of a setup just yet. So this is my first time recording anything in here as I moved in 2 days ago. So I think it's a pretty nice arrangement though.
It's a great view. And you're in Portland in Oregon, along
I'm in
the
Portland, yeah.
Columbia River, right?
Yeah, so I'm technically in Oregon. You're seeing, I think, the Washington shore behind me, just on the border. Yeah,
Very
Columbia River.
nice. Very nice.
Yeah, a change of scenery. I was spent most of COVID in London, right in the center of a city. So this is very, very, very nice to be here.
It's great to be outside. Yeah, totally.
Yes.
Congrats on setting up Counterfactual. Do you want to tell me a little bit of the background of how you managed to set up this new venture firm and what the mission is?
Absolutely. Yeah, so you can think of Counterfactual Ventures as three things, really. Part one, a venture builder. Part two, an incubator. Part three, a VC fund that provides resources for the venture building and the incubation. Now, just to clarify a few things, the venture builder feeds exclusively into the incubator takes exclusively from the venture builder. We obviously, for having our conversation today on this podcast, we're focused exclusively on alternative protein. Anything in the food and material space that is replacing a unit of factory farming.
Yeah, and is it quite unique where you've created a company that does all those three things, starting with the venture building?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's quite unique. We're doing something relatively ambitious, though we've had pretty fantastic feedback so far that we're on to something exciting. Our idea here is that one company can solve a problem if it can scale. If we can build scalable companies at scale with a target of 8 companies every 6 months, leading into 2 cohorts per year in the incubator, we might be able to go about taking on factory farming in a much more direct way, let's say.
Yeah, so I think the top-down approach of looking at it from a research point of view is really quite interesting, where you would look at a range of topics, right? And that's the idea that you have like, what is it, 300 different topics, areas that you can think about that's linked with agriculture and climate change, and from those 300 you're whittling it down, right? Is that generally the process?
Actually 500 now, I believe.
500. Wow.
Yeah, 500 problem hypotheses. As we look at just the objective of replacing factory farming with the alternatives that are best for as many stakeholders as possible across humans, animals, and earth. So that's we're relatively agnostic to what that means, but we have a focus on, obviously, on plant-based, cultivated, fermentation, blended technologies. We're looking at IP, we're looking at B2B, new markets, new demographics, new geographies, making behavioral plays here, trying to create the type of companies that appeal to a much wider audience. Not the kind of last generation of vegan food with the green leaf in the corner to make sure everybody knows this is a conscious product, but rather how can I appeal to my conservative uncle who used to poke fun at being vegetarian at a Thanksgiving dinner, right? How can we create the types of products or enable the types of products that he will ultimately find to be common sense to buy?
Yeah, and that's a core part of the behavioral play, right? To convince the meat eaters, the flexitarians, but also the older generation that need to be adopting, other than just focusing on the Generation Zs.
Absolutely. I mean, the goal essentially is everybody, right? How can we actually create a new food system that appeals to all of planet Earth? The goal here isn't 2% market share, right? The goal is 100 over time. It's not going to be quick. It's not going to be easy, but that's the objective here. And in doing so, recognizing that that's disrupting a very, very large system, food quite literally touches everybody's life 3 times a day. It's what we gather our families around. It's what our cultures are built on top of. This is a sensitive topic. We have to go about making this change, very carefully. That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. And what's your own background? What were you doing before this?
Yeah, so I worked for about 10 years in the humanitarian development conservation space with a lot of NGOs, organizing NGO consortia, working groups across about 70 countries. So I spent a lot of time in the Middle East, Lebanon, Jordan, Turkey, Iraq, Syria, responding to the Syria crisis, where I was one of the leaders of the Syria INGO Regional Forum's advocacy working group, communication and media working group. So this was trying to control the message coming out of the whole kind of Syria response, communicated to the rest of the world to assure that we get the resources we need, that our policy messaging is taking hold, and that the collective humanitarian response across all these countries, both in Syria and the refugee crises adjacent to Syria, were, to put it lightly, comprehensive and not missing the point. Could go into a lot of details there, but I'll stay surface level. It was a really trying, challenging role to play. Spent some time thereafter in Nigeria as the coordinator and representative of the Nigeria NGO Forum. So working side by side with the head of the UN there, trying to play an orchestration role, kind of choreograph the dance, look at gaps and overlap in service provision, what organizations are not quite living up to their mandate, and zooming out and understanding across this whole response to provide assistance to 14 million people in need, where are the gaps? What are we missing? Where are we being completely inefficient and ineffective? And how can we come together to very, very deliberately try to fill these gaps and improve upon undesirable outcomes? So keeping that in mind, that's sort of what we're trying to do upstream in the research process at Counterfactual, is look at all of alternative protein, in partnership with GFI, with a whole lot. I mean, we're Material Innovation Initiative. We're working very closely with Oxford University, plugged in very closely at Cambridge, and a number of amazing institutions and awesome people that have been contributing. If you look at the website, we have, I don't know, about 70 people, 80 people at this point. Not about half of them are on the website, but we got a lot of people signed up to be incredibly supportive. It's been amazing. And yeah, what we're trying to do again is look at the whole, look at all of alternative protein, and figure out what gaps exist, what opportunities exist, again, to enable this transition away from factory farming and towards the best outcomes for humans, animals, and Earth. And when these gaps might take shape as a venture backable company, we're then in position with our VC fund within our venture builder to build these companies. Not just do the thinking, not just do the research and put something out there on the internet and hope, cross our fingers, hope somebody takes this forward in the shape that we think is optimal, but rather directly plug the thinking into the doing in the venture studio and try to build that company and find the best people in the world to run that company, and then hold their hand.
Yeah. So that's effectively the second part, which is the incubator now, where you would actually source your say again.
The hand holding.
The hand holding, yeah. So you would source your own founders and match make them according to the other people already on the team. Find a CEO, find somebody who can work on the solution, the technical side, food scientists, and you put them together to work on one of those main top goals that you have in mind that you've whittled down from the 500.
That's exactly it. Yeah, which is, it's happening in places. There's models like this, Entrepreneur First, Antler, Founders Factory, a few of these venture building models, not many that have such a deep focus in one particular space. And we think that gives us definitely an edge here to pull this off in the way we believe that we can. But yeah, what we're looking for, one of the really important pieces to this puzzle is talented people. We recognize, I've had experiences, my co-founder Hugh Thomas has had experiences with, challenges with both finding co-founders in the past, building relationships that last over time, and setting the type of frameworks in a relationship between founders that are durable, let's say. So what we're trying to do is solve a number of these problems by first, again, going upstream and doing that research. And then, from the 500 spaces we're exploring, we arrive at 8 for the first cohort. And then we bring, 8 sets of 2 co-founders into this equation. And you can be certain that we've scoured the industry and talked to incredible people to validate exactly why this is one of the top, what we believe to be one of the 8 most important companies that could be built in this space. And that you, as a world-class kind of individual, can then be matched with, introduced to, and have a relationship built around an equally as world-class co-founder who's also, at that point now of being ready to dive entirely into this whole thing together. And I've had that experience in the past. Really, I spent over a year trying to find a co-founder for a past project who was all ready to dive in, who was qualified, who had the complementary skill sets, and was really capable of leading this thing with me. It's not easy. There's so many talented people that might not have the network or find
exactly. And it could also be a geography thing, right? Like trying to find talent in a certain place. You might not find food scientists everywhere, for example.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what we're aiming to do is try to kind of hand on a silver platter a too good to be true scenario. Here is this validated company concept. You're going to have a world-class co-founder. You're going to 300,000 in pre-seed investment waiting for you, a 6-month program, supporting you through that process. What we're trying to do is give the types of mid-career professionals that have the experience it takes to do this. We'll take recent grads and the fresh and the young, but a lot of these other models like Entrepreneur First, for example, don't quite offer the package it might take to, how I'm framing this is giving the ammunition to that mid-career professional to go to their dinner table with their family and justify why they're leaving this very, very comfortable role to finally take this leap into starting a company as they've intended to for a very, very long time. And they need to be able to sell that. They need to get buy-in. They have the mortgage and they have the kids and they got a lot going on. And now they're, with that, we believe they're going to be even more invested in making this thing work than the young kid, right?
Yeah. So the amount there you said is the ticket size is $300,000 US dollars to go in pre-seed. Pre-seed. And then, what's quite nice is as that company develops, it starts to mature, then you also have your venture fund. And what is the ticket size then? And obviously you're going to be focused on those 8 companies to make it through to the venture fund side. And what ticket size is that then that you'll be aiming for? And would that be sort of Series A, I guess, or B?
So couple of answers there. So the 300K does come from the fund itself. We have reserved a large portion for follow-on, though, and we will certainly allocate follow-on to the most, the companies we believe that are going to need it most, let's say, or are most in alignment with our theory of change. With that said, there's this ecosystem out there. If we look at pre-seed, seed, Series A, and onward, there's a massive amount of resources, excitement, attention in the seed space that we believe if we're kind of positioning ourselves almost as a sort of manufacturing plant of optimal deal flow for seed stage investors looking at alternative protein as what's slated to be, one of the biggest growth industries of the decade. If we're able to pump out, 8 companies every 6 months that take the shape as their kind of dream company, that's what we're going for. And we think that we've developed plenty of relationships to suggest that we'll have a good amount of excited investors at pitch day. And we would love to be in position to sort of walk the companies through the first 6 months, holding their hands, and then place their hand in the hand of our allies at the seed level, as well as feeding into unreasonable working on a partnership there to kind of feed in directly our companies into the unreasonable ecosystem among a collection of others that we're speaking to. So
Yeah, I think one of the others was also, was it Dow Foods in China was another partner?
we were very, very good friends with the Dow guys. Albert was actually an advisor for us in the early days. And yeah, we have a lot of complementarity between what we're doing with their strong geographic focus in China and ours kind of geographically agnostic.
Yeah.
I don't know if we'd feed into Dow, but we certainly have collaborations and
Yeah.
that very often. Yeah.
Do you have any sort of initial insights in some of the research, especially what you're happy to share now at this stage?
Yeah, so that's all happening now. So we have an amazing team. Stacy Scholar, JINESH SHAH, both previous fellows at GFI, and a team of a couple of supporters there. Brett COTTEN, an incredible recent Cambridge master's grad who he actually wrote a Genepreneurship, I think was the name of his best-selling book he wrote in between his undergrad and his grad. He's been supporting JINESH. But this team has been, as I said, working on those 500 concepts, boiling them down to 8. And it would be hard to speak to what these are going to take shape as here in the next few weeks, but we certainly will soon. If I could give a kind of breakdown, we have something of an opportunity matrix. We're discussing plant-based, cultivated, fermented, blended technologies, looking at IP, B2B, new market segmentations, new geographies, and behavioral plays. If you can kind of imagine that 4x5 matrix there.
Yeah, yeah. Be excited to see what you come up with after you've done all that research work.
Yeah, I'm keeping the suspense there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So in general, though, where do you see the market going over the next couple of years for this sector of ours?
I have my personal biases for sure. I think that I'm leaning very much so towards fermentation and blended. I think what Paul's doing at Better Meat Co. is really exciting, and I think that model can apply to a lot of places around the world. Not seeing that, and that's really neglected. Fermentation, algae myceliums, obviously very, very exciting. However, this is sort of the process that we built, and we could go into those details sometime. I suppose it would be a little bit more challenging without all the presentations and all the visuals, as something pretty complex is happening there. But the process was built to kind of overcome these biases, right? Each individual, any founder of a company rightfully does what they're good at, what they care about. And this is a really, really important process as a founder to find what you believe in, what you're good at. However, we're building for an industry, and then we are going out to source the founders to fit into these problem spaces. So yeah, we want to take a very unbiased approach to exploring what ought to be built and why.
Yeah. So you're looking for sort of entrepreneurs now, founders who could potentially come in and work with these companies that you're helping to create. What's the timeline, and what's the timeline for the investment side as well?
Yeah. So we are that's up and moving now. In the next, I'm not sure when this will be published, but in the next couple of weeks, we'll definitely be pumping up our recruitment there much more thoroughly. We've been doing a number of events and building up sort of these talent feeding partnerships that are quite exciting. In terms of timeframes, we're accepting applications now, and will begin, I believe, in early January to really start engaging there and going a bit more deep into interviews, tests, and we have quite a process set up that we can speak to sometime, that we're excited to be working with. Also a number of other organizations that have just offered to provide their time and get involved because they really like what we're doing. Time frames aiming for, though there's the potential that this is sometime between April and May, beginning of April, end of May, we'll be launching cohort 1. 8 companies. Between January and April will be our interview and matching process time.
Great. Awesome. So I'm really looking forward to see what companies that you create for the first cohort. And yeah, thank
I've
you.
been doing a good job of building up the suspense here with
Yeah,
everybody who's asking, and I'm not telling anybody anything, which is great. You got to tune in, come
exactly.
tune in for the season premiere.
Exactly. So yeah, so best of luck with it, and thanks for coming on the show. And we're good to have you back again, talking about these companies that you've created next year.
Absolutely. Yeah. And at that point, I promise I'll tell you some details. But been a pleasure. Looking forward to next time for sure.
Great. Thank you so much, and speak to you soon.
Absolutely.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Bye bye.